California just got slapped again, and it's not by voters, not by lawmakers, but by the Constitution. A federal court just torched one of California's strictest gun laws. And the Supreme Court? They're watching closely. Here's the deal. A law that forced gun owners to pass a background check every single time they bought ammo just got blown out of the water. Why? Because if you can't buy bullets, you can't use your gun. And that, the court says, is a straight-up violation of the Second Amendment. But this isn't just another California loss. This is the start of a much bigger showdown. Magazine bans, assault weapon bans, ammo restrictions. It's all unraveling piece by piece. And now, one case, Duncan versus Bonta, could go nuclear. And if the Supreme Court steps in, the ripple effect will hit all 50 states. Let's break it down. All right, the next part, it's huge. California thought it had a winning formula. Make it harder to get ammo and gun violence goes down. So back in 2016, voters passed a law requiring background checks for every single ammo purchase. That's right, every time you wanted to buy a box at 22 or 45, you had to pay a fee, swipe your ID, and hope the state system didn't glitch. Guess what? It glitched badly. In just 6 months of 2023, the system rejected over 58,000 legal buyers. No felonies, no red flags, just people who didn't show up in California's messed up database. Folks who've been shooting for decades suddenly told, sorry, you can't buy bullets. That's not public safety, that's a shutdown. Enter Judge Roger Benitez. He took one look at it and said, this violates the Constitution. His logic was simple. If you can't get ammo, you can't use your gun. And if you can't use your gun, what good is the Second Amendment? Then came the knockout punch. The Ninth Circuit Court backed him up. Judge Sandra Ikuda called the law a meaningful constraint on the right to bear arms. Because guess what? Owning a gun is pointless if the state can block you from operating it. And now the question becomes, was this just one bad law or the beginning of the end for California's entire playbook? Because this ruling, it didn't just kill ammo background checks, it shattered the idea that states can nickel and dime your rights out of existence. And make no mistake, the Supreme Court is watching. In California, it might have just lit a fuse on a constitutional firestorm. So, California can't enforce ammo background checks. What else is on the chopping block? Let's be clear, this wasn't just a single law getting tossed. This was a blueprint, a test. And now that it's failed the rest of California's common sense gun restrictions, they're standing on shaky ground. Here's what's next in the legal crosshairs. First up, the safe handgun roster. You know, the list that bans most new handguns from being sold in California unless they pass some near impossible test? Yeah, that one. Already under fire, already losing. Then there's the assault weapons ban. Struck down, appealed, but hanging by a thread. Don't forget the magazine limit. Anything over 10 rounds, declared unconstitutional twice. Still tied up in court, but it's not looking good for the state. Why? Because the Supreme Court's 2022 Bruen ruling changed the game. Now states have to prove their gun laws align with America's historical tradition of firearm regulation, not just whatever feels reasonable to lawmakers in Sacramento. Spoiler alert, 18th century America didn't have ammo fees, digital ID swipes, or handgun rosters. So now every single California gun law is being dragged back into court one by one, and judges aren't asking if they're smart, they're asking if they're constitutional. California, it's losing the argument repeatedly. This isn't just the fall of one law. It's the crack in the dam. And unless something changes fast, there's a flood coming when they could sweep away decades of gun control in the Golden State. To really understand what's going on here, we need to talk about Bruen, because that decision is the wrecking ball behind everything. In June 2022, the Supreme Court dropped the nuclear ruling in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen. The majority said if a gun law isn't rooted in America's history, it doesn't hold up. Not useful, not effective, not even common sense. Doesn't matter. What matters is whether the law fits the historical tradition of firearm regulation. That's the test now. And here's the punch. Most modern gun laws, especially in states like California, don't pass it. They're built on modern fears and progressive ideals, not on 1791 legal doctrine. So the moment Bruen dropped, it wasn't just about carry permits anymore. It opened the door to challenge everything. ammo background checks, magazine bans, handgun rosters, waiting periods, you name it. California's entire gun control framework. It's been peeled apart in court, case by case, not because judges suddenly become gun rights activists, but because the Supreme Court forced them to apply a stricter test. And once that test is applied, these laws just can't stand. But this isn't just a legal theory. It's already hurting real people. In just the first half of 2023, over 58,000 legal ammo buyers were wrongly rejected by California's flawed background check system. No criminal records, no disqualifying history, just law-abiding citizens denied because of database errors, mismatched records, or outdated info. Imagine needing ammo during wildfire season, break-ins rising in your area, and the system says no. One man was blocked 3 times in a row trying to buy a .22 LR for pest control on his property. That's not oversight, that's oppression wrapped in bureaucracy. We're seeing this just not in California, but in New Jersey, New York, Maryland, even Hawaii. It's a full-scale unraveling in California, the poster child of gun restrictions. It's turning into the national battleground. One loss here isn't isolated. It's precedent, and it's fueling more lawsuits, more reversals, and possibly one massive Supreme Court showdown. So the big question now, is the Supreme Court about to jump in? Let's be clear. The Bruen ruling already changed the game. Now the California ammo background check law struck down. The stage is being set for something even bigger, because this isn't just one quirky policy falling apart. This is the second major California gun law after the magazine ban to get torched under Bruen's framework. There are more lawsuits in the pipeline. Ghost gun restrictions, assault weapon bans, handgun roster limits. It's a domino effect, and the state knows it. So what happens next? California will almost certainly appeal. They'll either ask for an in-bank review from the full Ninth Circuit, or they'll take it straight to the top, the U.S. Supreme Court. And here's where things get interesting. If the Supreme Court takes the case, we're looking at a national moment, not just a ruling for California, but a decision that could lock in the fate of ammo laws across all 50 states. This is how it starts: a local rule, a federal court, a clean challenge, and then the justices step in. Remember, the court doesn't take every case, but they do take the ones that clarify big constitutional questions, and right now the Second Amendment is boiling with them. They decide to weigh in. This won't just be another headline. It'll be the most significant ammo-related gun rights ruling in American history. And trust me, everyone from Newsom to the NRA is watching this like a hawk. All right, now let's bring it home. Why should you care? Because this fight isn't just happening in some marble-floored Sacramento courtroom. It's not about politics. It's not even just about California. It's about you, your family, your freedom, your future. Let's be real. If a state can block your ammo purchase every single time you walk into a store with a system that's glitchy, overpriced, and downright broken, what do you think happens next? What happens when the database goes down during a blackout? What happens when your ID doesn't match the outdated records they're pulling from? What happens when they start adding red flag categories behind the scenes and suddenly you're denied for reasons you'll never even know? You're not just delayed, you're disarmed, quietly, bureaucratically, and worst of all, permanently if no one notices. That's why this case matters. Under the Bruen decision, the question isn't, is this law well-intentioned? It's about how many bureaucrats think it's common sense. It's about one thing. Is this law consistent with America's historical tradition of gun rights? And let's not sugarcoat it. Background checks for ammo never existed during the founding era. They didn't show up in the 1800s, not in the early 1900s, not even when crime was surging in the 80s and 90s. They're new, they're restrictive, and according to the Constitution, they don't belong. If the Supreme Court takes this up and signs are pointing that way, the ruling could detonate the legal foundation for ammo restrictions nationwide. Whether you live in California, New Jersey, Washington, or anywhere else, this decision sets a legal tone. If one falls, the rest could follow. So don't sit this one out, because the ammo you're allowed to buy today could be the difference between self-defense and helplessness tomorrow. And if they can strangle your rights with red tape once, they'll do it again with more forms, more delays, and fewer freedoms. Don't let that happen. So here's the bottom line. California tried to ban standard magazines, tried to ban so-called assault weapons, tried to make them nearly impossible to buy ammo, and now, one by one, those laws are falling. This isn't some random court drama. This is the foundation cracking, and if the Supreme Court steps in like it's expected to, we're talking about a decision that could obliterate ammo background checks, not just in California, but across the country. Don't get too comfortable. You know how this goes. Even when courts hand out wins, politicians scramble to rewrite, repackage, and rebrand the same laws under a new name. They'll throw in buzzwords like common sense or safety, but the goal stays the same: disarm law-abiding Americans one bullet at a time. So stay alert, follow your local court cases, know what your attorney general is doing behind the scenes, and most importantly, don't stop talking about this, because silence is exactly what they want. Confusion is how they win. But when gun owners speak up, show up, and stay informed, we win. This is more than a court case. It's a warning shot. And if we don't pay attention now, the next law might not just block your ammo. It might block your ability to fight back at all. Stay loud, stay legal, stay ready. And hey, if you want more updates like this as the Supreme Court heats up, like, comment, and subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next.